Here's how to completely take apart a Game Boy Color. I'll leave a list of all the tools I use in the description, but you can also see them right here. First, we just want to take this back cover off and make sure to remove any batteries. Then we're going to use a Y0 bit to remove 6 screws here, 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 and here. Okay, with those 6 screws out, we can just pull the back right off. To remove this battery contact, I just switched to a small Phillips bit. This is a Phillips 2, and then we can push in on this little release tab right in there, and it slides out of the way. Then I'll switch to my third bit here, the Phillips 00, to remove 1, 2, 3, 4 screws on this shield. With those screws out of the way, now we can just remove that and put it aside. That's the back shell. Now we have everything attached to the front. The first thing I'm going to do is just pull this little power switch up and out of the way. Before removing the screws, I want to use my thumbnail and push up on the 2 gates on the side of this little place where the ribbon cable attaches. And then I can use my thumb and finger and kind of carefully wiggle this cable back and forth and out of there. And now our ribbon cable is disattached. We'll switch to our last bit, the Phillips 1, for 1, 2, 3 screws. In mine, you might have 4 in yours if I remember correctly. But do keep in mind that this little guy right here is not a screw. You don't need to put your screwdriver in there. Okay, now with those screws out of the way, we should just be able to lift this board right out of here. The speaker will come attached to it. Sometimes these membranes that are on the buttons will also attach to the board. Let's set the board aside. Now we have a few things on the front of this shell here. First, up top here, if we just slide up on this, we can remove this little cover for the infrared sensor. And then these membranes can just be lifted off of here. And then the D-pad and the AB buttons, we can just flip over and they should drop out. The last couple things we have here, if you want to remove the screen, a lot of times if you're getting into this, that's the reason why. I would suggest putting a little bit of heat on that with a hairdryer for just 20 or 30 seconds, kind of going around. That should help loosen the adhesive. And then by very gentle twisting side to side, I've already had this one apart, so I didn't need to do the heat part first. You can see just extremely gentle. You don't want to like crank it and break the screen, but just very gently, it might come loose. If you're having trouble getting it, that's why I have this last tool here, the Spudger, that we can just kind of lift gently up on this ribbon cable and get down here underneath the front. And there, we can pull it back. Keeping in mind that you don't want to get anything inside of here and scrape this screen. You don't want to really wrench on it. It should come pretty easy. If not, just use a little bit more heat and be careful, take your time. If you're replacing the screen cover here on the front, same thing with the heat on it, and then we should just be able to push it from the inside. All right, when you're ready to put this back together, the first thing we're gonna wanna make sure to do is clean the inside of this screen. And if we got any fingerprints or smudges on this, we're gonna also wanna clean it. I'm going to use a streak-free electronic safe wipe and a microfiber cloth. Just use this on the inside here, go around and clean that up. One of the things I'm being careful to do is not drag the sticky adhesive that's on the inside here into the screen protector. So I'm kind of going from the middle toward the edges. If you want to use a cotton swab and just kind of go around these edges and make sure that it got that, we could do that. Then I'll just use the corner of microfiber cloth on the end of my finger here. And again, we're going to go towards those edges because we don't want to drag that adhesive into the screen here. Now it still looks a little smudgy, but I think that's because of the outside. And just to check it, I'll clean that. Yeah, much better. This one, I'll go ahead and just wipe it very carefully and gently. All right. And with no little dust particles settling down inside of here, we'll just set that back in with the ribbon cable at the top. Tiny bit of light pressure around the edges here to help that adhesive grab it again. And there's the screen. For the buttons, there's a little notch on the D-pad that helps you know it sets right there. And then the buttons also have these little notches on them that are set to only rest in here correctly in one location. So the A button goes on the outside here, and the B button sits like that. For the silicone pads on here, this bigger hole at the bottom goes over the post, and then there is a smaller hole that has a little guide right there that it rests on. And then this one can go either way as long as those little holes go on the posts. And then these buttons also can go either way in there. I like to put in the infrared thing here first. So with the open part facing up, we can just set it down in there so that it's kind of flush across here. It is set down in there just a little bit, but you can tell there's little spaces for it to guide into right there. Now we can set the board back in here, and with everything lined up properly, it should be pretty easy. This speaker, which is just kind of floating loose with these wires, we just want to make sure that that sets down inside of there, and then the board should set down on here. We want to make sure to grab the top of this cable while we're doing it and pull it out of the way so that we don't bury it. I'm going to attach these screws before I connect the ribbon cable. Using the Phillips one here, we just have 1, 2, 3 spots, all marked by a nice little circle on this board. Now we reattach this cable. I can kind of pull it back with my thumb and index finger here. Make sure that these posts are all the way up. So I just push them up with my index finger. Otherwise, if they're down, they're like that, and that's locked in place, and then you're trying to jam this thing in here. Be sure to make sure that you have it lined up directly in the middle, and then I like to put a little bit of pressure behind it to make sure that it's all the way in there. Then use my fingernail and push those locking mechanisms right back down. When putting this power switch back on, I just like to make sure that this switch here is either all the way down or all the way up. We'll do it all the way down. And then we take this little nub thing on the bottom here, goes on the inside and at the bottom. And then we want to line these two guidance posts up over top of that switch. And then before I put it all back together, I'll move it back and forth and make sure that it's working correctly. To put this battery contact back in, one of the things that will happen with it is that this little tab that locks it in place will get pushed flush again with this thing, and then when you put it in, it could fall back out because it doesn't grab anything. So I just want to take that and kind of bend it a little bit back out so that that tab right there has something to grab onto. And then it just goes right here, and we can just take our fingernails and push it down, and it should lock right into place with that tab. So we can put this plate back on right there, switch back to the Phillips 0, and we'll put these 4 shorter screws here, 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 and here down on the inside. We don't need to worry about these ones because that is where this thing anchors together. Now we're ready to take this back, just line it up over top, and it should go right down on nice and smooth so that it's all together with that seam nice and snug. And we'll switch back to our original Y0 bit and put these 6 longer screws back in where they belong. Here, 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 and 2 on the inside. And with our batteries back in, we can put the cover for the batteries back on, and there we go. Our Game Boy Color is reassembled. Happy fixing and happy cleaning.